What the fuck?
Nintendo were probably at their offices thinking on how to make the sequel of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and then one person probably just walked in and said, just make it better. And then they came out with this! The hype that was surrounding this game from the moment it was even announced to be in development was insane, but I feel like there was a burning question that was surrounding a bunch of the people that were waiting for the game to come out, and that was whether or not the game was going to be better than Breath of the Wild, or if it was even going to be as good as Breath of the Wild to begin with. The experience Breath of the Wild brought the player was so unlike the industry standard that customers have been adapted and accustomed to for years, that now trying to recapture that magic twice simply didn't seem doable now, or in like a million years. Before we start actually talking about the game you clicked on the video to watch me talk about, I do want to say that because of certain conditions, I played a shit ton of the game in handheld mode, but because I wanted to talk about certain aspects that I experienced, and the best examples of those aspects are when I was playing during handheld mode, I decided to use the clip feature from the Nintendo Switch to record them. So if some of the footage looks straight out of the toaster, I want to apologize. I also do want to say that the video will have a spoiler section as well as a couple spoilers in the beginning montage section, so skip to wherever I put the timestamp whenever the montage appears, and I'll also put a timestamp for when the spoiler section actually comes in. And now, the video that you've all been waiting for, me talking about the new standard set by The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. Okay, the one thing that I think Tears of the Kingdom misses on is the opening, at least when compared to Breath of the Wild. Whether it was because of the insane amount of new juicy mechanics that will need to be taught to the player to help them not become a lost child and an Ikea, or some other mystical reason, the tutorial of the game feels more than fine with holding the player's hand more than Breath of the Wild's tutorial up until the moment in which you take an air dive into Hyrule below. While it is nice that they want to avoid players not finding out about certain mechanics, I do wish for the coveted fuck this tutorial option that seems like it was exclusively made for Banjo-Kazooie and no other game in the history of the medium. Although to play devil's advocate, the tutorial mainly shows you and mainly focuses on the main mechanics new to Tears of the Kingdom, so I guess it can be passable. Once you finish the tutorial though, you get your extra heart, get told your main objective, and jump off a cliff.
By all means, humanly speaking, that just is impossible.
Once you land into Hyrule, that is truly when the game begins, and dear mother of God! In the last game, you only had Hyrule to explore, but now you have Hyrule 1, 2, and 3! Some of the biggest things that change between games is that the game has added 2 whole layers to the map for you to explore: the sky and the depths. These 2 areas are not only about as big as Hyrule itself, but also feature about as much content and more. In the Sky Islands, you'll be building, exploring, fighting multiple bosses, and doing a bunch of shrine quests that'll have you use the Mousket tool arsenal to its fullest potential. On the other hand, the depths will have you run for your life, play the florist, try to drain all your life away, fight the Giga clan, and use the Doohickey arsenal to its fullest potential as well. You can rewind falling rocks to get to some Sky Islands, in some cases you could ascend, or in some cases you can get launched from the new and improved towers, which just launch you dozens of feet in the air. How is anyone other than Link meant to do this? Now, how do you get into the underground? Well, you dive into the underground. Yeah, there's not a lot to mention here, honestly, especially because I can't see for shit. So the gimmick with the Shadow Realm is that the electricity is out and you're just meant to turn it back on, you stupid idiot. In the Phantom Zone, you run from light route to light route and only get distracted by other stuff half the time that you're there. By the way, if you need some help finding the light routes or even finding shrines, I'll let you know that the light routes are in the same position as the shrines, so whenever you find one or the other, just know that you gotta buy one get one free. I think that these are some of the best inclusions in the entire game. Hyrule was already a massive world in the first game that not only managed to be big, but also managed to be fun to explore, which is not something that many games get to claim. And honestly, I wasn't so confident on just how good the exploration of these maps were going to be, but I was incredibly surprised by it. Because of the many other mechanics that were added to the game, exploration now more than ever is incentivized for all different parts of the map, as they will always benefit you in one way or another. In the last video I mentioned that Breath of the Wild did a pretty good job when it came down to incentivizing the player to explore, with the promise of shrines that would strengthen the abilities of the player, and eventually allow them to get items like the Master Sword. But now it's not only that, keeping you on your toes for what is out there, and the game really thrives off of that. The 2 maps don't feel like separate entities that are chores to explore. They feel like proper extensions of Hyrule with a lot of new mechanics that give new spice to an already explored land.
Listen, that's great and all, but have you ever wanted to...
They actually managed to top the mechanics of Breath of the Wild. I can't believe this. Everything in this game feels like an actual continuation of what Breath of the Wild had to offer, and all these abilities are just great. Ultra Hand is the main one that you'll be using as it turns the game from Zelda to fucking Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts. Or Minecraft if you're cultured enough to use the redstone properly. This is the damn mouse tool, I can't even joke about it. The ridiculous contraptions that are possible with this little thing makes the $70 price worth it for that alone. You can make cars, you can make planes, you can make air bikes. The sky really is the limit when it comes to these things. You may think that you're being pretty creative with some of the things that you're making, but what you don't realize is that you are nothing. Because while you're out here grinding the baby mode, people have refined their taste buds to the point of making bomber planes, fire digs, a new model of the Evangelion, I think? These guys are just breaking Geneva conventions at this point, like come on guys, I know that the Koroks are bad, but this is a bit over the there's more seats? Am I hearing that right? Wait, my contacts have told me that there's 100 more seats. I have never been glad about burning the forest, but here we are. And what about the other mechanics, eh? Ascent didn't really seem that useful at first, but I'll be honest, the deeper you get into the game and the more you are familiarized with the mechanics, the more satisfying and easier it gets to actually get use out of this mechanic. As long as there is a flat ceiling above you that's close enough to your head, you can ascend to it and go through the ceiling. And believe me when I say that this will get some heavy use later on. Recall is an evolution of... I'm surprised it took me this long to make a JoJo's reference on this channel. Anyways, it goes from the world to being able to rewind time. Bites the dust, I guess? This ability just makes it easier to cheese the hell out of some of the shrines, and I love it. Oh, and you can fuse weapons with fuse, leading to some actually goofy numbers with how strong your later weapons can get. All the abilities in this thing are surprisingly great, and believe me, you'll get a lot of use out of these abilities at every single opportunity that you get. In Breath of the Wild, you never really neglected any of the abilities, but some of them were less used than the others. Still used, let me emphasize, but not as used. They just make exploration so much more fun because instead of just getting there like a normal person, I'm making something near certainly illegal, just abandon it and build another thing immediately after. These mechanics also give purpose to so many other aspects of Breath of the Wild. In the last video I mentioned that the durability system was essential because it incentivized variety, but what I failed to mention on retrospect is that if you had a strong lineup of weapons, then you would probably have no reason to trade them for a weaker weapon, but in Tears of the Kingdom you can just make every weapon dummy broken because of the fusing mechanics is incredible. Do you, by any chance, miss the old champion skills, or just put something on your shield to get the job done basically as well? It's like Rebelli is still talking shit. Instead of the champion skills, you instead have new sages just come and help you beat the brakes off of enemies, all with their own unique abilities, which, I'll be honest, I do think that the champion abilities were slightly better. One, because they had Rebelli scale, and this game does not, and two, they are easier to activate. In TOTK, to activate an ability, you need to run straight to the character and press A, which, I mean, fine, for when you have one character, but when you have four, I think there could have been an easier alternative, but the abilities are still pretty fun and running away while your buddies do everything for you gives a good chuckle. The materials also get more use other than making dishes and upgrading gear because of this, and the more I talk about the new features in Tears of the Kingdom, the more that I realize that some of them should have really just been things from Breath of the Wild. It's one of those things that in retrospect think, yeah, that doesn't really make any sense, but during the time of the event originally happening, you're like, hell yeah, I love elephants! One of the things that I was the most excited to see how they handled it was going to be the dungeons, and more than that, how they were going to handle the story. With all the good things that Breath of the Wild did, the one thing that most people can agree on is that the Divine Beasts were pretty weak replacements for the main dungeons, and that wasn't really mitigated with the existence of shrines. To me, shrines always felt like puzzles, those weird puzzles, you know, the puzzles that are scattered on like the overworld and like other traditional Zelda games that rewards like players with heart pieces and such. Yeah, that's more or less what shrines were, and Divine Beasts just kind of felt like bigger versions of that. I never really thought the Divine Beasts themselves were like bad, at least not the first time around, but I understood more of the complaints after playing all the Zelda titles like Twilight Princess or Link Between Worlds. Not the greatest example, probably, but these games definitely had more interesting layouts and variety, and the puzzles took advantage of the different versatile items more than it did on Breath of the Wild. Tears of the Kingdom brings back the traditional ways of Zelda dungeons with way more unique layouts and awesome set pieces. One of my favorite things about the Divine Beasts were the little events you had to do before entering them. Crippling one of them, bombing the other one, Metal Gear Solid, and swimming were all pretty fun activities, but I feel like this is just a much better version of it. My favorite definitely has to be the Rito Temple because just the build-up alone was crazy! You see a storm forming up in the clouds, and then you have to climb a mountain followed by a bunch of debris, and then a bunch of floating ships all surrounding the tornado. And then you go inside the eye of the storm and the lightning and everything, it goes so hard! If I had to describe the dungeons, I'll say that they are a combination of the best aspects of the Divine Beasts and normal dungeons. I actually am a really big fan of these dungeons, and I do think that they have a lot of room for improvement, so I'm excited to see how they handle them in later games. The bosses are also much better, and the variety in bosses as well, not even in temples, but in general. There's just more bosses now, and they're also well designed and satisfying to be. Wait, I forgot to fight King Ghidorah. What really surprised me was the improvements made to the lore and the story of the game, because dear God, was the story disappointing in Breath of the Wild? I do remember mentioning in the last video that I wish that the story was kind of implemented better. It just felt like the story was a bit of nothing. You don't really get to see anything interesting happen because everything that is interesting already happened beforehand. And while the characters interacting was cool, it felt like you were just watching a movie that you already knew the end to. While Tears of the Kingdom does something more or less similar to that, I do like how it just ditches Link completely and just focuses on what Ganondorf and Zelda are doing. And the graphics, dude, the graphics are so damn good. They somehow made the game look even better than Breath of the Wild. The settings and locations that you visited in Breath of the Wild were already fucking beautiful and made the game come to life. But this game at every possible moment just screams, that's great and all, but check this fucking shit out. I already mentioned that I love the Wind Temple based off of the presentation alone. But bro, when I got to the Water Temple and them crazy visuals and music started playing, bro, I am about to
I'm gonna be honest, that did not need to be included.
The game has so many stunning set pieces that are simply unforgettable. I've already done the whole graphics spiel in my Breath of the Wild video, but to say that this is one of the most visually pleasing games I've ever played is the understatement of the century. And the music is so good as well. Now you see, with Breath of the Wild, there wasn't really that many tracks to marvel at, but now I have to say that the amount of music in this game is crazy and they're all bangers!
The meter can't lie. This game just doesn't miss.
I feel like you can see it by now, but everything that Tears of the Kingdom does feels like a proper step forward, a proper evolution to every one of the mechanics from the last game. And nowhere is that felt more than exploring Hyrule to your heart's content. All these things just feed into the sublime new sense of discovery and freedom that this game gives off when compared to the original. Playing the game completely blind led me to discover so much shit that some of my close friends have, and then vice versa. I have this one friend that while we were playing, we would constantly share secrets and tips of the game and whatnot, and so many times he told me something and I would just respond with, where the hell was that? The game holds the hand of the player a lot throughout the initial stages of the game, but the moment that they let go, they don't just let go, they purposely throw you off to the abyss. Quite literally in this case too. The game damn near tells you nothing, which makes for some absolutely incredible discoveries. But there was also a moment in which I was talking to one of my friends and I was like, you know, it's pretty weird that they didn't put the shrine sensor in this game. And he was like, but they did. And I was just staring at him like, I was 13 hours into the game. This game is a walking distraction because I'm just trying to advance the story or grind shrines, but boom, enemies, boom, bosses. Is that King Ghidorah? New weapons, sky islands, and depths, weird looking drawings on the floor. What are those? I don't know, but look at Ganon's nose. I don't know, why is he smiling like that? You can also explore however you want. Half the early game I was using this weak glider to get across my destinations, but then I realized I could just use 4 fans and a control stick, but then I just found an air bike and then I realized, fuck it, I'ma start levitating. I didn't think I'll have that much fun just trying to make a vehicle and then failing horribly, but here we are, I'm playing Tears of the Kingdom and having the time of my life. Not only the world, but the shrines as well. If you think about it hard enough, you can cheese these dungeons in any way you want. Every other hour, I'd be looking at Twitter and some random person under the hashtag Zeruda no Densetsu be putting combos straight out of the DMC series in this game, and I'm just staring at them thinking, sona koto ga aru mono ka?
2 years of trying to learn Japanese, and that is honestly the best that I could come up with. So this Kimben des. Well, I probably screwed that up badly. Oh god.
Some people were posting the next Tony Hawk Pro Skater game with some of the shrines, and hell, some were finding little solutions like this from the moment the game begins. That's right, you can even find multiple solutions to the tutorial. Don't go forward, just go straight up and skip half of the shrine. Abuse the recoil plus ascent combo. Take advantage of the many different tools that you can get outside of the shrines to break them once you get to them. Getting to a sky island? Make one of the millions of different vehicles your feeble and slowly deteriorating mind could possibly come up with. Or simply use recall to use a falling rock. Or fuck, anything I just said and just shoot an arrow with wood. I'm sorry, I just have to call myself out over here. Did I just say wood instead of wood? It doesn't matter. Combine a platform with it and just go up? How is any of this possible? Never have I seen a game with the level of freedom that The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom manages to put into the player's hand. Not for this genre of games at least. While there are other examples of games that are bigger in the open world genre, and examples of video games like Minecraft and Terraria with seemingly infinite open worlds and replayability, you have to remember that Zelda is just one map. The map of Tears of the Kingdom is not randomly generated like the other two examples are, so to have a world that is not only this massive but also be so intricately well made and polished that the levels of freedom and player choice available allow for one puzzle to have a damn near infinite amount of solutions with the only thing stopping the player be their own capabilities? That shit's insane! The amount of work that was put in for the physics of this game to be this well made are generally terrifying. If dozens of companies crunch their workers to back-breaking extents, then what the hell is Nintendo doing to get these massive games released?
Sure, my bad. Should I just said that from the beginning?
This game has set a new standard. A standard on how to let the players simply experience the world in their own way, not forcing them down a path or down a single puzzle solution. An idea that was somewhat present in Breath of the Wild is the bread and butter Tears of the Kingdom offers, and it presents one of the most gratifying games to play, and it makes for one of the most memorable experiences you could ever have in a video game. Well, here it is. We finally reached the spoiler section, so yeah, the spoilers are actually gonna start throwing hands in this section, so I would heavily recommend that you skip this part if you haven't played the game or if you haven't finished it, as I will be talking spoilers surrounding like the game in general, not just like the final parts of the game. So, 3, 2, 1, here we go. I already mentioned that one of the best aspects of the game was the way in which they handle the memories in this game. I already mentioned that they don't focus on the present, but on what Zelda and Ganondorf are doing over there in the past, and I also mentioned that I like how this allowed the side characters to be developed more, but I just want to talk about how well Ganondorf is done in this game. I just like that this man is nothing short of the worst menace to society, in case that damn laugh wasn't enough. Again, why is he laughing like that? They give time for this man to be evil, and even if it's only through flashbacks, I genuinely found the man generally intimidating, and I think that the game does a fantastic job in building him up as the final obstacle in your quest that you have to stop. And when you get all the memories, it's revealed to you that Zelda turned herself into a dragon, and she has the Master Sword in her forehead? Something that I noticed here is that technically there's two ways of obtaining the Master Sword, that you can either A, get all the memories and immediately follow the dragon, or B, go to the Lost Forest and then go to the depths and climb your way back up only to go inside the Great Deku Tree and fight these damn hands. Yeah, I never mentioned the hands up until now because I was still hoping that they were a horrible nightmare and nothing more, but as it turns out they are simply real and I'm gonna have to confront my fears. At least I tried to, but based on the fact that I have an entire hour plus recording and journaling of the pain that I was going through trying to defeat them, you can assume that facing my fears didn't go swimmingly. I had the prep time of Batman and I was still struggling. Nothing could have prepared me for Phantom Ganon just randomly appearing and looking to throw hands, but after the Great Deku Tree gets, I don't know, his body cleaned, I guess, he pinpoints the location of the Master Sword for you, which makes the quest to find it a whole lot easier. So skip over 4 temples and 1 Master Sword quest later and you're back on the main story. You see what looks like Zelda and follow her to Hyrule Castle until you see that it was a trap all along set by Ganon, as he was making fake Zeldas to trick the different species and screw them over. Okay, this part really surprised me. So you have a rematch against Phantom Ganon and your team comes in for the save, but Ganon retreats and the party decide to play their next move. And this surprised me because I was expecting the game to be done by now, as, you know, That was what the last game did. But no, as it turns out, you have a 5th sage to find, and that leads you to a whole underground search until you find and link a robot to the spirit of the 5th sage. And only after that are you recommended to go to the depths and actually fight Ganondorf. After a very long and very difficult section if you're not prepared, you end up fighting with the rest of your team against the forces of the Demon King, and this shit is honestly phenomenal. It's what I wanted Breath of the Wild to do. But enough waiting. For now, the real show begins. You're separated from the RPG party as they are refighting all the bosses from the temples, leaving you on your own to face the Demon King, fully re-energized and looking more fearsome than ever. This, without a doubt, is probably my favorite Zelda boss fight ever. The best Ganondorf fight by far as well. It's a duel between two skilled swordsmen and it really feels that way. Ganondorf uses a bunch of the same abilities as Link, and he can also just straight up dodge your attacks just as well as he can. They build up Ganon in such an excellent way throughout the entire game, so you're just ready to take him down, and when you finally get down there, you're greeted with peak fiction. The tension is high and gets even higher when he goes onto the second form and starts... What? Okay. I have to admit, that's sick. The fight itself is very tense. It feels like it should be easier considering that Ganondorf shares the same moveset with Phantom Ganon, but not only are his moves stronger, but Ganondorf feels even more aggressive and can straight up just delete your hearts if you're not careful. It's difficult, it's anxiety inducing, it feels like an insurmountable challenge, but at the same time it feels extremely satisfying to nail down. You're constantly attacking and dodging each other, looking for the perfect chance to strike. I could have put on some better armor definitely, but I also just felt like the Skyward Sword armor was extremely fitting for this moment, so I just kind of kept it. The feeling that this battle gave me was unlike any other. To any person that doesn't like the combat in this game, I get ya, I really do. But look at the Twitter clips and look at this final boss fight. Honestly, I swear it can produce miracles. I beat this man on my first attempt, but it was not an easy task. I had 2 whole hearts left, and when I tell you that my jaw dropped, shattered, when I saw that he ate the stone and turned into a fucking dragon, I mean that I was shitting my pants to unprecedented levels. Zelda, this is a fucking dragon battle. In a Zelda game, look at me straight in the eyes and told me that this isn't one of the best final bosses in video game history. I can't even lie, I was giggling like a dumbass throughout the entire fight. I had the dumbest smile across my face. This fight was magical, one of the best send-ups and conclusions to any game I have ever seen. Rarely have I had so much fun playing and experiencing a game like I have with Tears of the Kingdom, and rarely have I ever simply not wanted an experience to end. This is easily one of the best games I've played, and I only really spent 40 hours in the game. It feels like I haven't even scratched the surface because I really haven't. There's 150 shrines here and I have not even beaten half of them. I've barely explored half of the depths, and yet with that little that I played, I've gotten an experience that I will never forget. This game is a masterpiece. How will this opinion age? Give me another 6 years and I'll make the second Tears of the Kingdom video to answer that. But for now, simply know that this is very likely one of the best games that I've ever played.
Well, that's all the time that I have had for today. I'm just a random stranger that you met on the internet. But hey, just call me Suda.